Welcome to Casual Politics, Mathew Parris. Thank you very much for accepting my request, and I'm very grateful to you. You need absolutely no introduction. Well, we're just looking at your Wikipedia page, and then last time that you represented the constituency in Parliament, it was back in 1986, almost 30 years ago.
Yeah, people still think I'm an MP. It's amazing. If you've ever been an MP, some people still think that
because
you are.
You're still active, actually, in the media and everywhere.
I
so.
should read my own Wikipedia page. Then I would remind myself that I'm not an MP any longer.
But has the idea of becoming an MP again ever crossed your mind over all those years?
It would cross my mind just as in those old video games where a little evil thing moves across the screen and you have to zap it straight away. Any time, any thought that I could ever do anything in politics except as a commentator enters the horizon of my perceptions, I zap it straight away, because I was never any good at that.
So you never enjoyed your time as Member of Parliament?
I did, because I enjoyed the constituency work. You know, you're like a little hero in your own constituency. You help people get benefits they're entitled to, or pedestrian crossings where they need one, all those things, and it gives you a very nice feeling, like being a good Samaritan or a social worker. I enjoyed that. But I wanted to make some progress in government, and maybe to be a minister, to be a cabinet minister, and after 7 years I saw that that was not what was going to happen in my career, so I wasn't unhappy, but I wanted to try something bigger.
But were they the best times to become an MP for Conservatives, because you were under the premiership of Margaret Thatcher, and she led the country through radical changes?
Yeah, it was a very interesting time to be a Conservative MP. I should like to have been an MP in the government, but I was on the back benches and I saw it and I admired her very much, and so I found those times fascinating, not always agreeing with her, sometimes not, but it was a time of great political change. It was a time of very clear leadership and direction. It was a good, strong story, and even as a journalist I can see that it was fascinating to be observing it from the inside.
Very interesting, because Frank Fool, just a few days ago, he was saying that Jeremy Corbyn, in a sense, is a radical as well. So do you think that we're back to actually in those exciting times all over again in politics?
I would like to think so, and I've just come back from the Labour Party conference, and there was a feeling of excitement there. But what I did feel about Margaret Thatcher's radicalism was that it reflected something big stirring in the country. I don't feel that with Jeremy Corbyn that he is able to activate more than a core of left-wing supporters, and so that will make for an exciting ride for him, and it will make for an exciting story from the Labour Party, but they're never going to come within any prospect of winning an election, and Margaret Thatcher did, and it's power to me that is interesting.
In your article today in the Times, you said that even though that you admire Blair's covert tourism, but still you're glad that now it's all over. So is it a good time for Labour Party that the Blair legacy has been brushed aside?
It could be a very good time for the Labour Party if the moderates, the people who are not crazy in the Labour Party, who are the majority, would have the courage to see that it is time now for a new kind of Labour Party, that there is a space on the centre left for a party that believes in the free market, believes in the theory of competition, but also believes in a more equal society and believes in government intervention to try to make the markets work better, that believes in welfare, that believes in all those things. I think such a party, there is a space for such a party in Britain. But Jeremy Corbyn is not going to fill it. He simply wants to overthrow the capitalist system. And most Labour MPs, I think, haven't the courage to rebel.
But are we entering into a new era of politics, new way of doing politics, that people have been put off actually for over 2 decades?
It has become very fashionable to say that the public are disengaged from politics. But if you look at voter participation in general elections, it carries on between about 60 and 70%. To say that one is alienated by politics is now the fashionable thing to say, but people carry on voting, and you might argue that people realise that we've got about as good a political leadership as we can get, which doesn't mean they think it's very good, or that it's brilliant, or that they always agree with it, but I don't think there's a strong feeling among the public that there's some new kind of leadership, new kind of direction that they can see, but that politicians can't see. So I think there's a measure of complacency among the public, and complacency is sometimes a sign that things are going okay.
And we were both active actually before the election, but no one was predicting that after the election we were thinking, that after the election would become very actually boring after those accelerating debates, and now all of a sudden now these times are even more interesting and exciting than it was the general elections time.
Everything has been unexpected. Most people didn't expect the Conservatives to win the general election. I did. Most people didn't expect things to go as they have. Nobody expected Mr. Corbyn to become leader of the Labour Party. Nobody expected the way the Labour Party would go. So we are in a completely new and unexpected era.
And is it more interesting for younger people to engage more? For example, I don't know if I'm pretty sure that you listened to Jeremy Corbyn's speech yesterday.
Yes.
There was no spin, no soundbite. So is it new politics?
Well, I think people are quite tired of the very professionalised, polished PR soundbite politics of the past. Tired of it from Tony Blair, tired of it from the Labour Party, tired of it from the Tories as well. So, of all the criticisms I'd make of Jeremy Corbyn, the fact that he speaks normal English in a quite boring kind of way and appears to be trying to say significant things rather than just strike gestures, poses, communicate messages and all the rest, I think that's in his favour. I just happen to think that his own beliefs and ideologies are misplaced, crazy, but I do think that he is onto something when he says that people are tired of over-professionalised political communication. I think the public get wise to PR much earlier than the PR merchants understand.
Well, where are we in terms of ideology now in British politics? Because the Tory party, they're shifting very swiftly to the right and Labour to the left, and then there is a vacuum actually in the centre ground. So,
well, that may be where we are in politics. In I beg your pardon. In the electorate themselves, I don't think the shifts are nearly as significant. I think the British electorate are rather conservative. They're not very conservative, they're not very right-wing, they're not fascists, but they're rather conservative, and they always have been. And David Cameron has been quite skillful, I think, in appealing to that part of the British electorate. Elements in the Conservative Party have moved to the right, but the party as a whole, I don't think is very much to the right or the left of where it ever was. But I do think that if we have no opposition, we the Conservatives, have no intelligent opposition from the left, that is a pity, because there is a danger that the party will do some things that will hurt more people than the party understands, and there will be nobody to explain it.
And do you think that those on the centre right of the Labour Party and those on the centre left of the Tory Party will form a coalition together?
I would like it if they would. I don't think it's an immediate possibility. I think at the Conservative Party conference that we now face, the party does have an opportunity to make an appeal, not just to its own supporters, hey guys, aren't we brilliant, we won an election, I'm bored with that, but to make an appeal across the political divide to Liberal Democrats who don't think that Tim Farron is the best leader that a party could have, and to Labour supporters and members who don't think that Jeremy Corbyn is where history is going, to make an appeal to them and say the Conservative Party is willing to meet you in the middle, talk to you about your concerns. Not just say, come on, you're really Tories, join the Tories. I don't think anyone's going to respond to that message. But if I were the Chancellor, I would say we have some quite controversial policies. We know there's a lot of opposition to them. Maybe we're wrong about some of them. We would like to talk to you about it, but you've got to come and talk to us.
So, do you think that we will see one day a new SDP party formed, actually, of some of Labour backbenchers and Tory backbenchers, and even, why not, Lib Dems backbenchers?
I would like to see such a day. I would like to see that party anchored in my own party, the Conservative Party. I would like to see my own party shifting its focus towards the centre and attracting people from the outside. I don't really care whether we carry on being called the Conservative Party. Names are unimportant, but I was around for the surprising rise of the SDP, and it took everybody by surprise. And it taught me that there is a suppressed appetite in Britain for a centre party, that no party has ever really entirely understood. Maybe Tony Blair understood it, but he wasn't brave enough to stand up to Gordon Brown.
Yeah, and but now there is a problem within the Tory party, is that people, they don't trust the leaders. I don't talk specifically about David Cameron, but if George Osborne or Boris Johnson, whoever it is that will replace him, but still they don't represent people, ordinary people, and that's the problem, isn't it? That we're facing at the moment. Because Jeremy Corbyn, people he represents ordinary people, doesn't he?
No, I don't think so. I think to most people he just looks like a bearded school teacher.
So ordinary people.
Yeah, bearded school teachers are not ordinary people. There is no such thing as ordinary people. Ordinary people are a huge, diverse range. The Tories, you're right, do look too posh, too toff-like. Parts of the Labour Party look crazy, left-wing revolutionaries, ideologues. Parts of the Liberal Democrats look like kind of bunny-hugging green activist. So all of these people have their representatives among the public. None of them represents what you would call ordinary people. I don't think it's that a party needs to obsess about trying to find a kind of everyman image that looks to everybody in the country as though it's a mirror, he or she is a mirror of themselves. I think that is a vain pursuit. It's pursuing a will-o'-the-wisp. I think that you need to give leadership. You may not look just like Joe Bloggs or anybody else in their sitting rooms. You may look like a slightly unusual person. Churchill didn't look like an ordinary person. Margaret Thatcher didn't look like an ordinary person. Actually, Clement Attlee didn't look like an ordinary person. They weren't ordinary people.
But their backgrounds, they were, weren't they?
Well, Mrs. Thatcher was a grocer's daughter.
Their backgrounds, they were ordinary. Whereas Conservatives
What
today,
is an ordinary person's background? I don't think that has any meaning. I don't think the fact that Mrs. Thatcher was a grocer's daughter made her more sympathetic to people or less sympathetic to people. She was herself. What people liked about her was she had a clear agenda, and they got an impression they knew where they were going with her. Most Labour cabinet ministers have come from Oxbridge backgrounds, many of them from public school backgrounds. That doesn't matter. It's their mind, it's their brain, it's their heart, it's their intentions that people care about.
And now we're talking about the new era of politics. If tomorrow, we don't know when is it, but Jeremy Corbyn, he's no longer leader of the Labour Party, as Robin Day once said, today,
here today, gone tomorrow.
Gone tomorrow. So, but do you think that his legacy of doing a new way of politics will live on or not?
Well, first we have to see how long he lasts.
Yes.
Until recently, I've thought he would not last very long. I now think he might last until the next election. I don't think his ideas will survive, or rather, they won't prosper because they're bad ideas. But I think the fact that somebody who didn't talk in polished spin doctors, neat bite-size phrases, was able to appeal to a large number of people, that will lodge in the minds both of politicians and of communicators.
Now each party are facing a civil war within the party. Conservatives, it's a cliche, but with the Eurosceptics, and they even defeated the government over pardon rules. And Labour Party with the leader against the PLP parliamentary party. We got Lib Dems as well. So to what extent do you think that civil wars that we have in Parliament are a reflection of democracy?
All parties are always in a state of permanent civil war. The Labour Party, all through its history since the Second World War, has been in a state of civil war. The Conservative Party is in a state of not civil war, occasional insurrections, mutinies, dissatisfaction, and the Liberal Democrats as well. That's just a truth about political parties. And civil war is only an image. It's metaphor. If you want to see real civil war, go to Syria, where people are dying. No one is dying in the Conservative Party. They're just disagreeing about some things. That's not a new era. It's the way things always were. Some of these issues will be resolved. Some of them will simmer on. But I don't think we should over-dramatise this.
You talked about the Syrian crisis, actually refugee crisis, Greek crisis. Do you think that yourself, are you put off by the way that the European Union is operating?
Oh, the European Union's useless. It's useless. I've more or less been in favour of staying in the EU, and I think I will probably vote to stay in favour of the EU. But
Did you vote in 1975?
No, I think I was in America at the time.
Okay.
And I can't remember how I voted, but I remember not knowing how I would vote, and I feel the same now. I'm not in favour necessarily of Britain storming out of the European Union. Maybe it's better to stay. One stays in a lot of clubs that one doesn't entirely approve of. But the European Union just keeps disappointing its supporters and making life easy for its opponents.
But for instance, in 1975, British people they voted to actually to join a single market because they didn't they voted to lose their sovereignty, and in return they wanted to get security actually. But now it seems that security it just vanished.
Well, I think
So
what the British people voted for in 1975, we were already in the European Union, they simply voted not to leave, was probably what they're going to be voting for next time. There was no great enthusiasm for the EU then, and there isn't now. Contrary to what the Eurosceptics say, the argument that the EU was going to be encroaching on our sovereignty was very strongly made in 1975, and it's going to be very strongly made again. And people are going to vote not really mostly on whether they're hugely attracted to the vision of the European Union or whether they absolutely detest it and all its works. Most people are going to vote on it is on the basis, is it better not to cause a fuss and carry on as we are because it's not killing us, this European Union, and maybe if life outside the EU would be a little bit colder. That I'm afraid that's the strongest argument I can make for it, but it may be a successful one.
As you may remember, in 1975, how Wilson actually fooled British people over his EU renegotiations. So do you think that David Cameron will do the same this time around?
I don't know what David Cameron will do, as David Cameron will have renegotiated the terms that he is presumably going to be recommending. Well, he'll have to recommend them. So he'll have to say that life is going to be better if we accept these terms and stay in the EU. But I don't think he's going to be saying it with any huge evangelistic fervour.
So one hypothetical question, if Britain decides to leave the European Union, do you think that we will see another Scottish referendum over its independence?
Oh, no, if Britain leaves the European Union, Scotland will leave the United Kingdom. There's no question about that.
So, and is it a good thing or
Well, I think it would be a pity. I don't like to see things breaking up generally.
Yeah.
On the whole, the more nations can associate together, either in the United Kingdom or the European Union, on the whole, that's a good thing.
But do you think that David Cameron, after that, the nationalists, they lost to the unionists, so do you think that he broke actually his promises, so that's why that they reclaiming another independence?
No, No, I think David Cameron made the case for union with Scotland quite clear. A majority of the Scottish people accepted it, but it's not an overwhelming majority. And most Scottish people, I think, probably want to stay in the EU. Certainly their government does. So if Britain were to leave the EU, I think Scotland would want to leave Britain. And I don't think we could stop them, really.
Who is responsible for the rise of nationalists in the UK?
I don't know. I wouldn't exaggerate the rise of nationalism. There's certainly been a rise of nationalistic parties. I think in Scotland, the feeling of Scottish nationhood has grown quite strongly. There isn't much indication that it's growing in Wales. In England, it's more a kind of irritation and indigestion and general feeling of irritation with the Scots and the others, and why do we English never stand up for ourselves? But I couldn't say that I feel a sense of rampant English nationalism in our country. Certainly, if it's there, it's passed me by.
So do you think that the Labour Party will do very well the next Welsh and Scottish elections?
I think the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn might be able to appeal to a few disaffected Labour supporters in Scotland. I don't see that his appeal in Wales is going to be very great. And I don't think his appeal in England will be great at all.
And for the mayoral, last two questions.
Yes.
For the mayoral election, over summer you wrote an article in the Times criticising Zach Goldsmith that he would be a threat for his party. What is that?
I don't think Zach Goldsmith is really a Conservative. He's an independent. And the Conservative Party would rather somebody with the name Conservative wins the mayoral elections. Fine, he may win. But I think he'll cause the party quite a lot of trouble after he has won.
But don't you think that that's what people want to see?
I don't think your expression people has very much useful meaning. Lots of people want to see lots of different things. Zach Goldsmith doesn't think that people, as you put it, should fly, for instance. I think most people probably do want to use aeroplanes. Zach Goldsmith doesn't want Heathrow to have a third runway.
Are you for the Heathrow expansion?
On balance, yes, because I can't see how else we can do it. Zach Goldsmith has sometimes said that economic growth should not be the goal of politicians, and we need less growth and more green politics. It's a good point of view, it's an interesting point of view. I don't think it's what people, as you call them, would generally think. Most people want to see the economy growing and their own wages going up.
And my last question, what do you make of Michael Ashworth's new book on David Cameron?
Just an exercise in personal vengeance.
Vengeance.
It's a vendetta.
That's
yes.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you.